What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about Adam Thielen, him potentially returning to the Minnesota Vikings after the Harrison Phillips trade yesterday. Everybody is speculating what could be next for this Vikings football team. If I had to give my best guess, it would be number 19 returning home. And also, Adam Thielen's wife liked an Instagram video yesterday. It was Kevin O'Connell. He was on the Up and Adam show with Kay Adams, and he was asked about if he has heard anything about Adam Thielen returning, and KOC kind of gave a little smirk. But Thielen's wife liked that post. And why is this significant? Because Mrs. Thielen, a couple of off seasons ago, when the Vikings let Adam walk out the door, she went on a rampage on social media. She wasn't a fan of the decision. She was bashing the Vikings organization. So I think this is just a little small kind of crumb on the whole Adam Thielen situation, but I think that's good news if you guys want Thielen to return. And speaking about that, if you guys want the Vikings to bring back Adam Thielen, just drop a SKOL for me down below in the comments section. Make it look like US Bank Stadium on game day. I want to see over 1,000 SKOLs down below. So if you guys could, drop those down below in the comments section. So what really sparked this Adam Thielen conversation and really just the Vikings getting active in the trade market was the Harrison Phillips trade yesterday. So obviously the Vikings sent Harrison Phillips and a 2027 7th-round pick, and the Vikings received 2 6th-round picks for the New York Jets. And immediately, my initial thought was, why are the Vikings doing this? Shout out to Brian Windhorst. But, this is not a move that a team makes without another move down the line, because clearly the Vikings view themselves as a Super Bowl contender this upcoming season. And, even though Harrison Phillips, he was running with the twos, for a good portion of training camp, you don't just sell off one of your good players when you are a contending team for just 2 6th-round picks and to save the money unless you have another move following suit. And also Tom Pelissero, earlier on this morning, said this: the Vikings have been working the phones. There are several names it could end up being, but one of them is, somebody Vikings fans know well, Adam Thielen in Carolina. Potentially, could they find a way to bring Thielen, the Minnesota native, back home? That is one of the names to keep an eye on. But it's not just Pelissero. It's Ari Miroff saying there's some surprise that the Vikings would trade defensive tackle Harrison Phillips. But there may be more at play. They just added 2 6th-round picks and unloaded cash, something to keep in mind for a potential next move they could be working on. And then even Vikings beat reporter Kevin Seifert of ESPN said if the goal is to get a receiver that can help immediately, with Jordan Addison suspended and Jalen Naylor recovering from a hand injury, then it makes sense to pursue someone who knows the offense. Thielen also has worked out with J.J. McCarthy for 2 consecutive summers. So you just start reading all these tea leaves. You start connecting some dots. It does make sense for Thielen to return because Thielen could still be a high-end wide receiver 3 in the league. And if you need somebody to step in for the first 3 weeks when Addison is suspended, this is a great option. And, he's still got a little juice left in the tank. Obviously, he's not the same guy when he had that 1 year, I think it was Kirk Cousins' first year in Minnesota, where he had like 9 straight games of over 100 yards. He broke the NFL record. He is definitely not that same guy, but he's still a productive football player. I still think he is, a solid wide receiver in the National Football League. And even with the Panthers in 2023, over 100 catches, over 1,000 yards. In this past season, in just 10 games played, still had 48 receptions, going for over 600 yards. And, I see a lot of people talking about a potential Adam Thielen return to Minnesota, and they just think it's all for the storylines. You're thinking with your heart. You're not thinking with your head. It's not about the story anymore. It just makes too much sense. The Vikings have a need at wide receiver. You want to bring somebody in just 2.5 weeks before week 1 in Chicago. You would hope that guy knows the system. Adam Thielen does that. You hope the guy knows the culture that Kevin O'Connell has built in this organization. Adam Thielen knows that as well. So it's not just about the storyline anymore. It is about actually adding a still solid, good veteran football player who has a connection with the quarterback, obviously has a connection with Justin Jefferson, has a connection with the whole damn state of Minnesota. So again, it's not about, how we feel in our hearts. I think this is more about how we feel up here in our heads. And the Thielen return, it just makes too much sense. But Alec Lewis thinks this is not just going to be one move for the Vikings. He is speculating that it could be 2 wide receivers brought in. This is what he said. The question that I would really ask would be, is it just going to be one, or are they going to be willing to seek 2 wide receivers with potential that one of them has a punt returning skill set? Like, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And, I agree with Alec. Like, the Vikings clearly have a need at the punt returning position. I think they tried to experiment with Silas Bolden. They didn't really want to head in that direction. And, one guy who was at the Vikings game last preseason game, what about little Brandon Powell? So my prediction for what the Vikings are going to do here, I think they will trade for Adam Thielen, and I cannot wait to get that notification on my phone. I'm going to be freaking out, man. I'm just going to have so much emotion. I'm going to be dusting off my 19 Adam Thielen jersey. I'm going to be fired up, but I don't think that's going to be enough. I think if you just trade for Adam Thielen, it would be a good move, but would it move a needle? Not necessarily, but if you would bring in Brandon Powell, then I think that would move a needle, because then your 3 wide receivers you're rolling out there for the first 3 weeks, Jefferson, Thielen, Brandon Powell, I'm feeling comfortable in that room. And then you can still have guys like Ty Fulton potentially step up. Tim Jones, Jayshon Jones, one of those 2 guys being your 5th and 6th wide receiver. And then you would get a punt returner in Brandon Powell. And then you just got a guy in Adam Thielen that just knows the offense. So that's my prediction on what the Vikings are going to do. I will give a thought here on Tyreek Hill in a second, but let me ask you guys this here first. You got to consider the trade package, what you would be giving up. Who would you rather bring in? Are you going with the big fish? Are you going with Miami Dolphins superstar wide receiver Tyreek Hill? Drop a 10 down below in the comment section. Or if you're going with Minnesota's very own Adam Thielen, give me a 19 down below. Now, I do want to give a massive shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show, and this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Now, preseason football is underway, and college football is here, so don't miss any of the action this season on PrizePicks. And if you guys download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code CLNS, you guys will get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is simple to play. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. PrizePicks is also the best place to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And speaking about the football season, week 1, they already got a free square for you guys where 1 Dak Prescott passing yard will get you 1 free win on PrizePicks. So make sure you guys include this in all of your lineups leading up to week 1 of the football season. I already got it in a couple of lineups myself. So take advantage of this deal. 1 Dak Prescott passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks. And download the app today. Make sure you plug in that promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you just play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. A massive shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's show. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, more thoughts on Adam Thielen here because, again, it goes deeper than just the Vikings having a need at the wide receiver spot. Like, there are many connections, and one of the biggest connections I think there is his relationship with J.J. McCarthy because that's obviously a huge part in the NFL. You want to have these wide receivers and these quarterbacks on the same page. Well, this guy's been working out with J.J. for the past 2 off seasons, and he's got some high praise for him, saying this. He's got all the tools, that's for sure. He can sling it, and he's super accurate. We're wearing shorts and T-shirts out there, but you can still see a lot just from accuracy, timing, and those kind of things when you're running routes on air. He's a great kid. You don't realize that he's 21 years old when you're talking to him and when you're hanging around him. He's got maturity about him that you can tell goes beyond his age. And again, keep in mind, this quote was from last summer, and he's already had this praise from McCarthy. But he also said, and that's step number 1 as a quarterback, right? To have that maturity level, to have that kind of poise or that kind of aura around you that just feels confident. And he's just a good person. So I've really enjoyed being around him for the little time that I have been able to be around him. And I love hearing that from Adam Thielen because, JJ does have that type of personality where guys just gravitate towards him. Guys want to play for him. Guys want to do their best for McCarthy because they probably see all the work he's putting in. And, McCarthy, for right and wrong reasons, the Vikings win, he probably won't get a lot of praise. But if they lose, it will be all on JJ. And I'm sure that resonates with the guys in the locker room. Be like, hey, this guy's going to get bashed if we don't do our job. So we're going to do our job at the best level we can. So I got 5 reasons why it makes sense. Number 1, like we were just saying, that connection with J.J. McCarthy. And then once Jordan Addison does return from that suspension, week 4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, that would be a great wide receiver 3. Like if you're rolling out there, Jefferson, Addison, Thielen, that's a hell of a wide receiver trio. And like we were saying, he knows the system. He knows the culture. He knows what Kevin O'Connell wants to accomplish on every single play. And you also don't need to send a haul. I could see the Vikings just sending those 2 6-round picks they got from the Jets to Carolina, and that could be the deal. So it's necessarily you're just trading Harrison Phillips for Adam Thielen. I think that's what it's going to be. And also, even though we're not trying to think with our heart too much, it would be all-time vibes. Dust off those 19 jerseys. It would be just a sweet story here for us Vikings fans. And KOC was talking with Kay Adams yesterday, and Kay kind of set him up here a little bit. Was just saying, hey, have you heard anything of Adam Thielen returning? And KOC started smiling. He said, this is the first I'm hearing of that idea. I love Adam Thielen. Then he went on a little bit of a monologue just talking about how great Adam was, specifically in that 2022 season when the Vikings won 13 games that year. And I will give some thoughts here on Tyreek Hill. You know, when I slept on it, I kind of woke up this morning thinking it's just a situation that may be too good to be true. And I understand, like, you would create the best trio of wide receivers in NFL history, but, you know, are the Vikings, you know, one, willing to do that? Like, do they want to give up that second or third round pick to go get Tyreek? I have no idea. Or would they rather just go with the bargain option of Adam Thielen? I'm not saying it's dead, but I'd probably put it at like a 2% chance this trade gets done. But Adam Thielen, probably around 30, 40%. But it's all going to come down to, like, will Kwesi be willing to pay that price? Will he be willing to give up draft capital for a guy like Thielen, for a guy like Tyreek Hill? I think he will. You don't make that Harrison Phillips trade for nothing, especially when you're a good football team. There should be a move after that should be heading our way as Vikings fans. But I appreciate all of you guys tuning in to today's show. We'll have another video dropping out later today on Anthony Richardson, so stay tuned for that. But if you guys made it to the end, hit me with a real one down below. And also, if you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, tweeting about the Vikings all season, all off season, so hit me up over there. Handle is at Pat Sieps. We'll see you guys next time. Let's go Vikes.